"You're broke. You should leave." That's what my brother said, loudly, firmly, without hesitation. And the worst part? My parents didn't say a word to stop him. They just nodded in quiet agreement, as if everything he said made perfect sense. I'm Huda Kattan. Yeah, I've always wondered why my parents chose that name for me. It's supposed to mean guidance or the right path, but for most of my life, I felt like I was stumbling through the dark. When I was 15, I overheard a conversation I was never meant to hear. It turns out my dad's ex-girlfriend was also named Huda, so maybe I wasn't named after something meaningful at all, just someone he couldn't forget. I wish that was the only awkward memory tied to my parents, but sadly it wasn't. Growing up, I was never the favorite child. That title belonged entirely to my brother Mike. He's 3 years older than me, tall, charming, intelligent, and of course he was born a boy, which automatically made him a superstar in the eyes of my family. When Mike was born, our grandparents celebrated like royalty had arrived. There were gifts, parties, even blessings from distant relatives. But when I was born, just silence. No gold bracelets, no savings bond from Grandma, nothing. I wore Mike's hand-me-downs until I was 10. My birthdays were quiet affairs, usually overshadowed by whatever Mike was doing at the time. When relatives invited us out, they took Mike. I was told to stay home and help your mother. Let the boys shine, they used to say, like it was some ancient rule of nature. But instead of turning bitter, I tried to laugh it off. I told myself I was just quirky, carefree. I smiled so much that people started calling me the cheerful one. But the truth, smiling was easier than crying. Still, I never truly hated my family. Not even Mike. I just kept trying to earn their love in small, silent ways. But that quiet hope shattered when I hit my late 20s. My dad retired, and almost immediately after, my mom got sick. A stroke left her partially paralyzed. Suddenly, she couldn't move around the house without help. I assumed my dad would step up. After all, he was retired. He had nothing but time. I was wrong. "Hey, Huda," he said over the phone. "I can't take care of your mother. Come home." "What? No, Dad. I live hours away. I have a full-time job. Can't you try learning? Maybe get some help?" He got angry immediately. "Don't talk to me like that. Just quit your job. Your mom's important, isn't she?" It didn't matter what I said. He made up his mind. And when I refused, he started calling my office, over and over. My coworkers were annoyed. My manager called me into a meeting. I was humiliated. Eventually, I gave in. I quit the job I had worked so hard to earn, packed my things, and moved back home. The house I returned to was a disaster. My dad, with nothing to do, had taken up gambling. Horse racing, to be specific. He spent his pension checks the moment they arrived. Beer cans were everywhere. Some nights, he drank until morning, mumbling to himself at the kitchen table. The savings I thought they had? Gone. My dad spent it all in the first year of retirement. I started dipping into my own bank account. My savings, what I'd put away for travel, for dreams, for someday, vanished bit by bit. I renovated the house to make it easier for Mom to move around. I got a new job nearby, making less money, but enough to cover expenses. Every month, I spent nearly $2,000 on living costs and Mom's care. My dad didn't offer a single cent. He didn't work. He didn't help. He just drank and watched TV. Somehow, I had become his personal servant. I woke up early to cook breakfast, worked during the day, and spent my evenings changing Mom's clothes, giving her medicine, and helping her use the bathroom. I was tired, no exhausted. I started thinking about putting Mom in a care facility, not because I didn't love her, but because I was breaking. But when I brought it up, "No," she said simply. "Why would I go to a facility when you're here?" My dad screamed, "Over my dead body! You're not throwing her into some home!" They didn't even consider what it was doing to me. I called Mike, begged him to help. He lived closer, had a better job, and no real responsibilities. But he brushed me off. "You're doing fine," he said. "You're good at this kind of thing." I was trapped, in a house that wasn't a home, with people who didn't love me, sacrificing everything I had to keep things afloat. 3 years passed. Then one day, out of nowhere, Mike came home. He announced that his girlfriend was pregnant, and they were already married. He showed up at our door with a woman I had never met before. Her name was Sandra. And from the moment I met her, I knew she was trouble. The moment Sandra stepped into our house, she made herself at home, as if she already owned the place. "I was looking forward to meeting Mike's sister," she said with a fake smile. "But you're nothing like him, not cute at all." I stood frozen, stunned by how casually she insulted me. But she wasn't done. She strolled right into my room, sat at my vanity like it belonged to her, and started trying on my makeup. "Ooh, I like this one," she said. "You should give it to me." She even opened Mom's old jewelry drawer and started poking around. Wonder how much 18-karat gold goes for these days. I could barely breathe. Who was this woman, and why was no one stopping her? But my parents? Oh, they were too busy grinning from ear to ear. "We're going to have a grandchild," my mom kept saying, clapping her hands like a schoolgirl. My dad was even worse. He stared at Sandra with that dazed look of approval, completely oblivious to her behavior. I tried to warn them. "She's not who you think she is." But they didn't care. All they wanted was a grandchild. And then Sandra said it, in that sickly sweet voice that made my stomach churn. "I'm really nervous about having my first baby. I don't know anything about raising kids. Could someone maybe help me?" Before I could blink, my dad leaned forward and said, "Then why don't you two move in here with us?" "Really?" Sandra beamed. "Dad?" I said, my voice shaking. "Of course," he said, as if it was the most logical idea in the world. My mother smiled too. "We'll get to see our grandbaby every day." They all looked so happy. Meanwhile, I was sitting there thinking, this house barely has space for me, let alone 2 more adults and a baby. "What about me?" I asked. "Where am I supposed to go?" And then my dad said it. "You should leave," just like that. "What?" "You heard me," he said. "Go pack your things. There's no room here for you anymore." I looked at my mom, pleading silently, but she only smiled gently and said, "I want to live with my grandchild. You understand, don't you?" "Mike?" He didn't say a word, just stared at me like I was invisible. "I've been taking care of you," I said. "I've spent everything I have just to keep this house running. What about Mom's care?" Mike finally spoke. "I'll cover everything from now on. I work for a major company. Unlike Huda and her local job, I can afford it." My dad slapped him on the back and laughed. "That's my boy." That's when I realized I was being replaced. By Mike. By Sandra. By a baby who wasn't even born yet. "It's snowing outside," I whispered. "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not our problem," Dad said. "You should have prepared for this." I begged them. "Just a few days, let me find a place, please." But my dad grabbed my arm, dragged me to the front door, and threw my bag at me. The door slammed shut behind me. I rang the bell, again and again, no answer. That night, I wandered the streets crying. I didn't know where to go. My savings were gone. I had no job, no apartment, no safety net. Eventually, I found a motel. Then I remembered a friend who lived nearby, a kind, steady soul I hadn't seen in years. I called her, shaking, unsure if she'd even pick up. But she did. And just like that, I had a roof over my head again. For the first time in years, someone cared. Over the next few months, I worked part-time wherever I could. Cafes, a bookstore, a small accounting office. I pinched every penny. Slowly, I started saving again. I told myself, I'll move away, somewhere far, somewhere new, somewhere I can start over. But just as life started to feel normal again, 2 years later, my past came knocking. Literally. I opened the door one morning and found my dad and Mike standing there, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow. "Huda," my dad said, tears pooling in his eyes, "please help us." They stood there, side by side, like 2 schoolboys who had been caught stealing candy. My dad's eyes were red. Mike looked like he hadn't slept in days. I crossed my arms. "Who are you?" My dad flinched. "Huda, please, we need your help." I didn't say a word. I just stared at them. I wanted to make them feel that silence, that heavy, suffocating silence they had given me the night they kicked me out into the snow. Eventually, Mike broke the silence. "Sandra kicked us out, all of us, me, Dad, and Mom." I blinked. "Sandra kicked you out of your house?" Dad lowered his head. "It's not our house anymore." Turns out, sometime after I was forced to leave, Dad, being the ever-trusting fool, had transferred the property title into Sandra's name. "It was a gift," he said, as if that made it any better. "She said it was for the baby's future." I had to sit down. Sandra had waited until after giving birth. Then, slowly, she stopped pretending to be sweet. She began changing, ordering Mike around, mocking Dad, insulting Mom. "She said we were useless," Mike muttered. "Said she didn't want to raise her child around pathetic people." One day, during a fight with Mike, she snapped. She packed their things, dumped them outside, and changed the locks. "And Mom?" I asked. She's bedridden now," Dad whispered. "She can't even sit in a wheelchair anymore." I wanted to feel pity. I did, but all I felt was rage. "You kicked me out for her," I said, my voice trembling. "You replaced me with a woman you barely knew. You called me worthless. Now you want me to help clean up the mess you created?" "She tricked us," Dad said weakly. "No," I corrected him. "You let her." And then came the final straw. Mike, the golden boy, reached out his hand to me. "We're family, Huda. We should help each other." I slapped it away. "When I was the one begging for help," I said, "you ignored me. I called you crying because I couldn't take care of Mom alone. You told me I was doing fine." Mike tried to speak, but I cut him off. "You didn't just abandon me. You watched them throw me out. You let it happen." Dad stepped forward. "Forget Mike. What about your parents? Don't you have any gratitude for everything we've done for you?" My eyes narrowed. I stood up and said, "I gave up my job for you. I gave up my savings, my freedom, my health. And the moment Sandra walked in, you threw me away like trash. You don't get to demand gratitude now." Dad threw up his hands. "We said we were sorry." "So an apology makes it all okay?" I replied. "Then I'm sorry too. Sorry for abandoning you. Sorry for refusing to help. Please forgive me." They stared at me, stunned. I walked to the door, opened it, and said goodbye. But of course Dad wasn't done. "You're insolent!" he shouted, lunging toward me. Instinct kicked in. I stepped aside, grabbed his arm the way I had learned in a self-defense class years ago, and twisted. He collapsed to the floor, groaning in pain. Mike stood frozen. I grabbed the salt container by the entrance and threw a handful toward them. They yelped, shielding their faces. "What the—" "Leave," I said, "and don't come back." I didn't care if the neighbors were watching. I didn't care if anyone heard me yelling. I had held back for too long. Dad begged one last time. "We're family. Blood is thicker than water." "Exactly," I said. "And blood stains everything when people betray you." I slammed the door in their faces. A few days later, letters started arriving. Apologies, pleas for help, tales of misery. Turns out they had moved in with my dad's sister, my aunt, but didn't last long there either. She and her husband got tired of Dad pushing the caregiving of Mom onto them. They were kicked out again. Now they were renting a cheap apartment, scraping by. I didn't answer any of the letters, but I kept reading them. I wanted to see just how far they'd fallen. Eventually, one letter revealed that Sandra had maxed out Mom's credit cards, bought appliances, jewelry, even a new sofa, all in Mom's name. And that's not all. Mike had discovered that Sandra had been cheating on him, maybe even since before the wedding. The child? Probably not even his, but there was no proof. And without proof, the court wouldn't grant him a clean divorce. Worse, he had been caught seeing another woman, a friend of Sandra's, apparently a trap. Now both sides were accusing the other of infidelity, lawsuits, compensation, legal battles. It was a mess, and I was living my life. While they were drowning in their mess, I was busy rebuilding my life, on my own terms. I switched jobs a couple of times. Nothing fancy, just enough to keep me afloat and keep me moving. Then something unexpected happened. I fell in love. It wasn't the dramatic, head-over-heels kind of love you see in movies. It was quiet, warm, gentle. A colleague I worked with, we shared lunches, long talks, and tired glances over paperwork. It began with small things. He'd bring me coffee. I'd save him the last slice of cake in the break room. Then one day, while we were walking home together, he looked at me and said, "Hey, did you hear? That actress is getting married." I nodded. "Want to do the same?" Just like that. No ring, no fancy restaurant, no dramatic gesture. But it was perfect. I said yes. We moved into separate apartments at first, close to each other. We liked the simplicity. No pressure, no drama, just a life that we built together, step by quiet step. And then, 2 years into our marriage, came another surprise. I was pregnant, with triplets.
"Yeah, triplets,"
I cried. At first, not from joy, but from pure shock. I had never really thought about having kids. And now I was going to have 3? But my husband? He smiled like it was the best thing in the world. "We'll figure it out," he said, "together." And we did. We had 1 boy and 2 girls. I remember the first time I held them. They were tiny, warm, their fingers barely wrapping around mine, and something inside me healed. All the love I had begged for growing up, all the appreciation I had never received, I poured it into them. Every bottle I held, every diaper I changed, every lullaby I sang, it wasn't a burden. It was a blessing. I made myself a promise. I would love them equally. I would show them that love every single day. And the funny thing? I didn't even have to try. Loving them came naturally. Even when I was exhausted, even when all 3 were crying at once, even when my back felt like it would snap from carrying them all day, they were mine. And for the first time in my life, I belonged somewhere. Of course, Life with triplets wasn't always picture perfect. Going outside felt like preparing for battle. Feeding time was chaos, and don't even get me started on laundry. But we found ways to laugh through it. Sometimes, when all the three wanted to hold my hand on a walk, we'd play a game. 100 steps with Mommy, I'd say, then switch. They giggled like it was magic. Other days, they'd run straight to their dad. Today I want Daddy's hand. And that was okay too, because they knew deep in their little hearts that both of us loved them completely. One afternoon I found them scribbling all over the living room wall with crayons. Red, blue, green, a rainbow mess of doodles. I gasped, "Hey, what are you doing?" They looked up, grinning. "We made a happy wall, Mommy." I wanted to be mad, I really did. But instead, I laughed, loud and full. "All right," I sighed, "let me grab the detergent." Because that's what motherhood is, a never-ending mix of chaos and joy, of mess and meaning. And as I scrubbed this wall later, I realized something. I had finally created the family I never had. Not the one I was born into, the one I chose to build. A family that didn't need drama or betrayal to be interesting. A family that ran on love, not guilt. And as the sun set behind our little home, I watched my children pile on top of their dad on the couch, giggling and yelling and squirming. My husband caught my eye and smiled. And in that moment, I knew I had won. Not in revenge, not in proving anything to anyone. I had won in the quietest, most powerful way possible. By living, by healing, by loving. On my terms.